In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the blanket stitch to attach small fabric pieces to its larger background fabric, and this is generally known as blanket stitch applique. As you can see in these ornaments, blanket stitch is used as a decorative stitch and as a stitch to securely attach applique to a background. Blanket stitch resembles an inverted letter L, and it's an important stitch to learn if you are interested in hand sewing. Now let's see how to do that. First, thread your needle and make a knot at the end. I'm using an embroidery needle and all 6 embroidery threads in a contrasting color so you can see things clearly. I'm using 2 felt fabric pieces here. The bigger one serves as the background and the smaller one as the applique. You can either hold the small piece while sewing, or you can use a pin to hold that in place. Now let's start sewing. From the back of the background felt piece, bring the needle up right at the edge of the small applique piece. Now remember, you are only coming through the background fabric piece at this point. Then pull the thread all the way. Now here you have 2 decisions to make. 1. How much you want one stitch to be spreaded, which is the horizontal part of the inverted letter L. And 2. How far you are going to go down from the edge, which is the vertical part of the letter L. After having a rough idea on those 2, go back down at that point through both fabric layers. Pull the needle from the back of the fabric until it creates a small loop like this. Then bring the needle up at the edge of the small applique piece and above the previous entry point. Move the needle through the loop and pull it all the way. Now this will complete the letter L, and this is your first stitch. It'll be the same steps after this point, and please keep in mind that I'm right-handed and I'm moving clockwise. Let me show you several more stitches so you can practice with me. Think of this as creating inverted letter L over and over again. Try to keep equally spaced stitches and also try to maintain similar height on the vertical stitches by keeping the space from the edge of the applique to the needle entry point similar. If you are having hard time creating equally spaced stitches, you can mark the required space on your thumb first. Then use that as a guide to maintain the space. Now let me show you what to do if you are running out of thread or you need to change the color of the thread after some point. Make your last stitch and then go back down right next to it by making a short stitch. As you can understand, to secure the last stitch, you need to include the former loop part inside of that short stitch. Then from the back of the fabric, pull the thread all the way. Now turn over to the wrong side of the fabric and make a couple of strong knots to secure the stitches. Finally, trim the thread short. After that, you can thread your needle with a new piece of thread and make a knot at the end. I'm using a different thread color this time to show you things clearly. As you can see, blanket stitches are hooked to each other along the edge of the applique. Whenever you are changing to a new thread, first bring your needle up through the last bit of the previous loop and only through the background fabric. Then pull the thread all the way. After that point, things are the same as the first time. You can continue sewing along the margin. The next thing I want to show you is how to do a sharp corner when you are doing the blanket stitch applique. You might need a bit of pre-planning here. Make your last stitch for that side, leaving the space for one more stitch after that. Next, go back down at the previous entry point and pull the thread until it creates a loop. Then bring the needle up at the corner and go through the loop. Pull the thread all the way and it will create an angled stitch. Rotate your project as you go and it'll help you with the proper orientation of the stitches. Moving on to the next side, go through that same entry point and pull the thread from the back of the fabric to create a small loop. Then bring the needle up at the edge of the applique and through the loop. Pull it all the way and by doing so, it will create a small square shape at the corner, and this is how you do the corners in blanket stitch applique. Let's say this is the nice way of doing a sharp corner, but it doesn't have to be the only way. You can always do things in the regular manner, and I'll show you how to do that next. After you make the last stitch for one side, you can move on to the next stitch closer to that corner using a different entry point. But even here, I recommend you bring your needle up at the corner and then go through the loop. By doing so, you'll be able to cover continuous stitching along the edge. For the next stitch, you can use a different entry point on the next side and go on. It won't be neat as the first corner, but it'll do the job. At this point, we have covered a considerable area and I think you are familiar with the basic steps. Now let's speed up things. Instead of going all the way back and then bringing the needle up, you can do those both steps in one go. For that, move your needle back down through both layers and then move the needle up only through the background fabric at the edge of the applique. From that point, pull the needle up all the way and make sure the thread is behind the needle while pulling. Otherwise, it won't make a proper stitch. Once you get used to this way, I think it'll be much easier and time efficient. Now it's time to see how to end the blanket stitch applique. It's simply completing the circle by connecting the last stitch to the starting point, and you need a bit of pre-planning here. For your last stitch, go back down aligning with the starting point. Then bring the needle up at or right next to the starting point. Pull the thread all the way while going through the loop. Now to secure the last stitch, make a short stitch by going back down right next to it. As you can understand, you need to include that former loop part in that short stitch to secure the last stitch. We are all done at this point, and now turn over to the wrong side of the fabric and make a couple of knots. Finally, trim the thread short. This is how blanket stitch applique looks, and I hope I have covered most of the basics here. Please leave a comment and share your knowledge and thoughts with us. Thank you all for watching, and I'll join you in the next one.